Hey everybody, welcome to week 12. We are going over employee dismissals, terminations and layoffs, and so it'll really flow discussions we had about discipline. So we'll keep, draw some of that back up to your mind as we go through layoffs and terminations and talking about that and making those distinctions. Why be safe out there? Wonderful time to celebrate. One of my favorite scriptures is in the Book of Mormon, Ether, chapter 2, verse 12, where the Lord is laying out the promise of, and it says, "Behold, this is a choice land, shall be free from bondage and from captivity and from all other nations under heaven, if they will but serve the God of the land, who is Jesus Christ, the things which we have written." And I think that verse very plainly lays out the blessings, the blessings of this land, speaking of the American continent, but whatever lands we're in, whatever lands we're in or whatever lands we occupy, it is our covenants as we serve Jesus Christ that will keep us from bondage and captivity. And so I'm sure thankful for those promises, because the gospel is liberty. If we are obedient, we're obeying laws that lead to liberty. In our individual lives, that's what we need in our homes, in our communities, and in our nation. And so we can make effort to make that happen. We're going to enjoy that freedom, enjoy that liberty. Verse in Alma chapter says that the Spirit of God is the Spirit of freedom. So if the Spirit of God is in our lives through our obedience and through our service to Jesus Christ, we're going to be just thinking about freedom and living on the 4th of July. Wanted to share that scripture with you. So when we're talking about layoffs and terminations, there's some difference. Okay, in most cases, layoffs are general. Layoffs are due to a business environment or a certain type of worker, and for those workers, or a different type of work, failing products, market shifts, failing anything like that. If you work for good companies, you layoffs, and if you're a company that values that, you do all you can to avoid a layoff or a reduction in force. But it does happen. In my industry, it does happen. And or the business that is being provided by a firm or a site is creating an overstaffing need, and so paying out for so much staffing when it's not needed based on the business demand or the client demands, sometimes it does create a need for a reduction in force. So when you're thinking of layoff, it is usually a general term. It can be an individual person that gets laid off. Usually it is a group, and it's not a bad thing. Layoffs happen. It doesn't mean you're a bad worker. If you get laid off, it just means that the business environment that you were in had to make those cuts. So it's unfortunate, but it does happen. Termination, on the other hand, is usually in the hands of the employee. If we're following suit with corrective action and correct warning systems, progressive counseling rather, if we're following those processes and keeping our conscience clear, so to speak, as a company, it creates an environment where an employee has a clear picture of where they stand, and it's only employees that get themselves fired. So that's why we've discussed the thought I've shared that in an ideal setting, and I need to highlight that, in an ideal setting where a company is doing things the right way, an employee shouldn't be shocked when they're getting terminated, right? So that's the goal. So the difference between a layoff and a termination is Layoff is based more on a business environment need or a company decision. Termination is based on uh, choices, performance, it's not being met, expectations or policies being broken. And as progressive counseling, there are times where people can other things that are pattern behaviors. We need to establish that pattern, have dialogue, and let that follow suit. So that's what we're going to be talking about this week. On that, I'm sure you've had experience of, seeing fired. Maybe some of you have had to be the manager or supervisor to terminate an employee. Perhaps you've been part of a layoff. Looking perspective on that, share that with your groups, and of course, think about it in terms of what it looks like for our doohickeys company and for your future. So bring questions. But again, happy Independence Day. Think of freedoms of the gospel. It's powerful. The gospel does not limit us. It is not a burden. It actually creates a freedom in our lives that the world doesn't always understand or see that way. So I just know the gospel is the framework for our success. It is the source of our safety if we serve the God of the land, who is Jesus Christ. So I'll leave that thought with you. And if you have any questions, let me know. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.